I would on Monday prescribe the IRGC, because Europe has prescribed the IRGC. They're a terrorist organization. They are indiscriminately attacking our allies in the region, like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Oman, earlier, who is one of their allies, hosting the negotiations and participating in the negotiations. But I would also go further and make sure that, albeit President Trump is clearly disappointed, we make everything available to our greatest ally, the United States of America.
How tightly involved in the Iran war should Britain be? Israel's President Isaac Herzog has followed Donald Trump and Tony Blair as the latest political figure to attack Keir Starmer's decision not to back the United States from the beginning.
Attacking a British base in British soil, by the way, Akrotiri is British soil, is mind-boggling and quite shocking. And I definitely think that, at least I can tell you from the viewpoint from the Middle East, in the Middle East, there's no mercy for those who don't make it clear that it's unacceptable. And I definitely hope that the Iranians don't interpret it as a sign of weakness.
That's Isaac Herzog talking to Adam Bolton, and you can hear that full interview at 10:45 this morning. Well, we're joined now by someone who is enthusiastically in favour of the UK getting involved in fighting. Nadhim Zahawi is a former Conservative Chancellor and now a member of Reform UK, and he joins us now. Good morning to you, Nadhim.
Good morning. I just want to correct you. I don't think there's any enthusiasm for war, but when war comes to you, as the Iranians have demonstrated they've done when they went into the negotiation boasting that they have 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, which would take them about 7 to 10 days to get to 90%, which is 11 nuclear warheads. That is the reason that the US and Israel are at war with Iran, because the regime was hell-bent on having a nuclear weapon. Imagine what they would have done with that today. They've just attacked the Bahraini desalination plant. This is a serious escalation of the attacks on countries that have no truck with Iran. They're countries that have stayed out of the war. The UAE, actually, the foreign minister was in Washington making the argument that there shouldn't be war, that there should be a negotiated settlement where Iran gives up its nuclear capability and capacity. They didn't allow their airspace to be used. They didn't allow bases to be used, yet Iran has chosen to indiscriminately attack the UAE, Bahrain, even allied Oman. The UAE has taken 4 times the number of attacks of drones and ballistic missiles than Israel, when the UAE had no part to play in this war against Iran.
So when you hear the Israeli president there criticising the UK, saying it's mind-boggling our response and frankly very shocking, I mean, what do you think should have been done and when?
It is, one, shocking, and I think the mistake that Keir Starmer's made is to pretend to have a sort of almost a fig leaf that the law somehow was ambiguous around this. Iran has been attacking the UAE through the United Kingdom, forgive me, through terrorist acts, through aggression against the United Kingdom's own sovereign bases in Akrotiri and Cyprus, of course. And I think what the United Kingdom should have done was, at the least, is to make our bases available, both Fairford and Akrotiri, and of course
for offensive operations
for Diego Garcia, absolutely, as well as, of course.
So you would advocate being more involved in an offensive way in the war for Britain?
Well, let's take an example. The United Kingdom has not yet prescribed the terrorist group, the IRGC. I hope on Monday the Prime Minister will come to the House and will announce that they will now prescribe the IRGC. I don't understand why we haven't done this. The European Union has prescribed the IRGC. It doesn't make any sense. It just feels like Keir Starmer's internal challenges and fears from his own party, from that left flank, from Islamist vote, not the patriotic, decent Muslim families.
That's a separate issue, though, isn't it, to go on the offensive?
No, it's not, because clearly the Prime Minister is stuck. He is absolutely hindered by the internal calculations of the Labour Party, of people like Ed Miliband and Rachel Reeves. We saw the leak from National Security Council of Ed Miliband. Why is Ed Miliband in the National Security Council? You know, I sat in the National Security Council as Chancellor and as Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. Why is someone like Ed Miliband even in that National Security Council? It doesn't make sense. And I think the Prime Minister, I'm afraid, is in a really quite an embarrassing place, because we've become an irrelevance in the region, when actually we have deep historic ties to many of the countries in the region.
Could you just enlighten me? I'm very curious to know, what is Nigel Farage talking to Donald Trump about in Mar-a-Lago?
Well, you'll hear directly from Nigel upon his return. And of course, our deputy leader and shadow energy and trade secretary, Richard Tice, actually travelled to the UAE and met with the minister, Reem al-Hashimi, the Minister of State there, and has, I think in many ways, I hope, has apologised for the sorry state of the United Kingdom's response.
Well, they've gone as apologists for the UK, have they?
No, I said I hope, because I just think that the way that we have behaved has bewildered the region and the regional leaders, because they expected more from the United Kingdom, and we haven't delivered. The French made their squadron in the UAE available immediately, within hours. Their carriers already in the region. Where is our ships? They're not there.
Well, that's an interesting point.
Where is our submarine? Submarine one is in the north, rightly so, by the way, because it's effectively hunting Russians and Russian aggression. The other one is in Australia on a goodwill mission.
The problem is that they're spread.
Weeks to think about this.
This is true, but they're spread thin, aren't they? There's a hole in defence budget. There's £28 billion that's short. So I mean, and you were with the Conservatives when this was all happening. It was on your watch.
I don't disagree with you, and I apologise to your listeners for the mistakes we made in the last Conservative government, albeit I would say that under Boris, he did raise the defence budget in real terms by 24 billion, spent, in my view, on all the wrong things. And I apologise for that. But what I'm really trying to say to you is, even with our military spread thin, there were things that we could have done. We've had weeks knowing full well that the Middle East.
I think we just lost Nadhim there. We'll see if we can get him back. But interesting that he's making an apology there on behalf of the previous government, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a vital part of all of this, is that, this doesn't happen overnight, the sort of degradation in defence ability. OK,
Nadhim, we've got you back. Thank you for your patience there. So you were saying you were apologising for what had gone before, and we are where we are. So when we hear now about being more proactive in the region, the questions coming up, what would you have the government do right now?
I would, on Monday, prescribe the IRGC, because Europe has prescribed the IRGC. They're a terrorist organisation. They are indiscriminately attacking our allies in the region, like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Oman, earlier, who was one of their allies, hosting the negotiations and participating in the negotiations. But I would also go further and make sure that, albeit President Trump is clearly disappointed, we make everything available to our greatest ally, the United States of America. And the Prime Minister would be wise, in my view, to pick up the phone and make sure that we are engaging with our allies in the region.
So, Nadhim, I'm very curious to know, knowing your heritage, that you were born in Iraq, that your father left the country because he had to escape the Saddam Hussein regime. What are your reflections now when you see a situation in Iran where the regime leader has been toppled, the country faces an uncertain future? I'm just interested if you could draw on your experience to reflect on that.
Yes, absolutely. And I returned to Iraq when Saddam was removed and volunteered to help there wherever possible. And my very strong view is that Iran, and I think President Trump is absolutely right, has to stay coherent as a nation. There are different ethnicities in Iran, the Kurds, the Baluchis, of course, the Azeris, different populations. And we have to make sure that the message is loud and clear that this isn't a fight with the Iranian people. This is a war against a terrorist regime that has been oppressing their own people. And I think the United States is determined to create the environment for the people to rise up again. They rose earlier this year and were massacred. 40,000 young lives, mainly young lives, innocent people who wanted a change in their country, wanted a country to open up, were killed indiscriminately. And the regime is today again threatening.
I mean, the danger is, though, that Donald Trump gets someone to lead the country who he can deal with, but the people are no better off.
Well, I don't believe that would be the position of the United States of America. I think what America is looking for is, and President Trump is looking for, is Iran to not fall into a civil war, to come together. This regime will be so weak, it will be removed, and that a new leadership would emerge that cares about its own people, that cares about its neighbors in the region, that wants to open up, that wants to rebuild an Iran without the tyranny of the theocracy.
Is this the best way to do it? Bomb a country till it stops?
We have no choice. You have to just remember what I said at the opening of this interview. If Iran had 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, that means they've been lying. They lied to David Cameron and to Barack Obama, to Biden. They've lied all the way through because they have the equivalent of 11 warheads almost ready to go. Imagine a world, if you and I were sitting today doing this interview and Iran had 11 warheads, the first would have landed in Dubai because the hatred of the prosperity and the incredible success of the UAE has led them to a place where they're attacking them indiscriminately. They're attacking Bahrain, they're attacking Saudi Arabia for no reason. These countries didn't join the effort, the war effort. It makes no sense. Imagine if it was nuclear today, we'd be having a very different conversation about even our own safety at home in the United Kingdom. I don't see why people, apologists, I'm sorry to say, keep saying, well, we didn't have to have this war. This country has been lying to the world about its nuclear program and was so close to a weapon that they themselves boasted to the American negotiator, Steve Witkoff, about having 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. I keep repeating this message because it's so important. And I don't understand why people can't even begin to get that actually the move that the United States and Israel has made wasn't just strategically important, it was imperative to make now.
OK, on that point, we will leave it for now. Nadhim Zahawi, former Conservative Chancellor and member of Reform UK, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much indeed.
Interesting that Nadhim Zahawi talks up the strategic importance of the timing here. The other thing that is coming through loud and clear in the critiques of Starmer this morning from Trump, from Blair, and from the President of Israel, who you'll hear more from on Times Radio later, is about allyship. And actually, this is just what you do for allies. But we emerge after months of Trump talking down the connection between the US
we don't
and
know who
Europe
our allies
on security. Well, that's the thing. He's very clear. Europe has to stand on its own, you know, do your own thing. You can't sort of count on the US anymore. So why on earth should the US be counting on the UK?